Jesse L. Martin returns as the character Alec Mercer in NBC's The Irrational, returning on October 8th. Jesse, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about the success of season number 1 and stepping back into this character for the new season.
Well, obviously, anybody who's watched the season 1 knows the cliffhanger is the fact that Alec Mercer, my character's new love, has been kidnapped, and we're not sure what has happened to her. This mystery is the big story starting season 2, first episode. So the big story is finding out what happened to Rose.
Yeah, we want to talk a little bit about Karen David joining the series and Collateral Damage. The new episode. I mean, especially leaving on that cliffhanger. I'm sure, and the thing to it I appreciate is that wasn't that much time between season number 1 and season number 2.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for mentioning Karen David. She's definitely one of my favorite new people and such a talent, such a great actor. I'm so glad she has joined us because she has turned Rose into such a fantastically interesting character, and certainly great for my character, Alec Mercer, who not only enjoys working with her on these crimes and mysteries, but obviously enjoys her as a person who he's romantically interested in. So it has been like a great little mix of love and science.
I love that. I want to ask a question about Alec and how he maybe gets into your head, because do you view people differently? Do you view situations differently? Because I know I do, especially after watching an episode, that my brain starts to function in a different way. Like how do you filming?
I'll take that as a compliment because obviously you're paying attention to the show in a way that we certainly hoped people would pay attention to the show. I mean, there's certainly no shortage of procedurals when it comes to crimes and mysteries, but the idea that things take an angle this way where we're talking about the science of human behavior and how people make incredibly irrational decisions, even though science says there's no reason why you would think that way, but that's what humans do. The cool thing about it is I've certainly had my space in the television genre of solving crimes, but they were usually from a law enforcement angle. And I now get to do that from a scientific angle, but I dare say even an emotional angle, because I get to use every bit of my own behavior to figure out other people's behavior and why people behave the way they do, even though science says you probably shouldn't do that.
Let's talk a little bit about Alec's world, because we got an ex-wife, we have the students, we have his sister. I mean, there's so many, we have Karen's character, Rose, but there's so many different people that kind of view Alec. I mean, let's talk a little bit about some of those other viewpoints that we get to see in the series.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, I have 3 amazingly strong women in my life, and you'll see a lot more of that actually, I have to fix that. There's 4 amazing women. Yeah. I have my ex-wife, Marissa. I have my new girlfriend, Rose. I have my sister, who I live with, who has a lot to say about Alec and his own behavior. And I have one of my students, Phoebe, who played by Molly Kunst, where I have all these incredible women who have completely different ideas and relationships with Alec, who all weigh in and help and also try to keep him safe. Because one of the big old funny things about this character is, as much as I can see irrational behavior in others, I can't necessarily see it in myself. So I need these people in my life to help me and to check me.
I think that's a great message, because I think so many people have that too. Sometimes you see the behavior in other people, and sometimes we don't always put the mirror on ourselves as well too. It's a very interesting part that we get to see part of that series.
Yes.
And the final thing I want to ask you, we're coming up on the 30th anniversary of Rent. I'm assuming this is probably the time that you were workshopping, rehearsing. What do you kind of remember about that 1993, 94, 95 period, kind of leading up to the big premiere?
Well, I mean, obviously the big story there was losing Jonathan Larson during that process. I mean, we certainly had a whole rehearsal period with him developing the show. You have to remember that we started working on the show at New York Theater Workshop, and it was a workshop. So we were creating the show as we were rehearsing it. So for it to get to the point where we were putting it on stage and lose the creator of the show and the composer, Jonathan Larson, was devastating and overwhelming, I must say. And one of the things that I'll never forget is how much the entire cast and crew galvanized to make sure that the story happened anyway. Getting that thing on stage in the midst of grief was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. And it speaks to the fact that the show lives on in so many ways all over the world, in even different languages and in different mediums. It has been in my life, and I'm sure in many other people's lives, the gift that keeps giving. And thank you, Jonathan Larson, for that.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for returning for season number 2 of the Irrational. Jesse, thank you so much for your time today. Season number 2 returning to us on October 8th on NBC.
Thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.